My name is Corey Jones, and the PAD taught me to expand my horizons and go beyond my comfort zone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the PAD podcast. My name is Rob Morgan. I teach design at WashU and the PAD, and I am so delighted to share with you an interview with Corey Jones. Corey Jones and I crossed paths a number of years ago where I designed 3 shows on an outdoor stage in Utah, in Cedar City, Utah, at Utah Shakespeare Festival. Before then and since then, he's made quite a career being an actor all over the country. He toured with Book of Mormon for 4.5 years on and off. He's done some voiceover work. He's the voice of Tombstone in the Spider-Man movies and even has expanded to some video game work. So I'm very delighted to share with you an interview with the incomparable Corey Jones. Enjoy. All right, my guest today on the PAD podcast is Corey Jones. Corey Jones and I have crossed paths in our professional theatrical careers, but I did not know until, I guess, somewhat recently that Corey is a Performing Arts Department proud WashU alum. So Corey, thanks for being on the PAD podcast. It means a whole ton to me, at least. So Corey, if you could talk a little bit about, I guess, just kind of start about where you grew up. And I understand you're a Chicago kid.
Yep, born and raised.
And so if you could talk a little bit about, how you made your way to WashU, maybe why you chose WashU. I know that you didn't necessarily major in drama, but you were highly involved, at least in an extracurricular way. So if you'd start there, give us a little bit of your bio, your backstory.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had no intentions of going into the arts. And in Illinois, you have to take speech as part of your freshman year. And so my speech teacher noticed something in me when I would do my assignments in class. And she says, you have a facility with language and a presence. You should go and try out for our speech team. And I was like, speech team? What is that?
What's that?
So, I go and meet the guy and audition. And long story short, I joined the team. And for the next 4 years, that part of the school ends up being my entire world. I absolutely fell in love with it.
Wow.
With the whole process. So we had different seasons where you would do individual events, sort of like you would do like extemporaneous speaking, oratorical declamation, original oratory. You would do acting events, and then you would do reading events like verse and short storytelling. And I pretty much excelled and loved doing the acting events. Humorous duet acting, dramatic duet acting. There was an event called Original Comedy where you would write your own 8-minute stand-up comedy routine and present it as a speech. And I did that for one season. And it just allowed me to explore my creativity in a way that nothing else at that point in my life had done. And I ate it up and truly got bitten by the bug. And so that was one part. And then we also had a competitive drama season where you would do these 40-minute cuts of plays. And my drama coach immediately got me involved. And so my freshman year, I played a role in The Rainmaker. And my sophomore year, I think we did The Boys Next Door.
Wow.
And third year, we did a very well-known classic of Mice and Men. And I got to play Lenny, which to this day remains a dream role, just because Steinbeck is such an incredibly rich writer. And
you're still in high school at this point.
Still in high school doing,
that's some meaty
pretty heavy,
shows to do. In high
contemporary.
school.
I mean, Boys Next Door is, about men who are either on the spectrum or have some mental incapability all living together. And so like we're exploring issues of like mental handicap and, I'm 15 years old, but our drama teacher is, allowing us to dive in and
I love it.
Challenging us in ways that, set me up and served me well for the rest of my career. And at the time I didn't know I was going to do it professionally, but it truly was an incredible foundation that got me started. And so did that all 4 years. And how I got to WashU is the Big Brother, Big Sister program at my high school in the suburbs of Chicago. That's this particular year, their destination was St. Louis. And I had applied to 3 schools, Yale, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and WashU. And I found out about WashU because they were sending me mailers, and I would look at the mailers. I was like, "Oh, this school looks beautiful," because of course it's Brookings Hall, which is
Yes.
this iconic Gothic cathedral, edifice at the front. And you're like, "God, this is a gorgeous building." And so and then I would look, and I saw that they had two programs that I was interested in. One was theater, and the second, and this is what I was going to be at that point, was an architecture program. I was big
Oh,
into architecture.
sure.
I was taking mechanical drafting in high school. I took AutoCAD.
Love
So
it.
17-year-old Corey was just knew he was going to be, designing buildings.
Yeah.
And also growing up in Chicago, I'm surrounded by this incredible architecture all around me. And yeah, so
Right.
it was that's where my desires were at the time. And so I go to
Uh-huh.
WashU, and things change.
Yeah. Right. So at this point, you're technically a Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts student. Is that right?
Exactly. At the
In
time, it wasn't
architecture.
Sam Fox. It was just Gibbons Hall. But yes,
Got it.
now they've made this into one art
Right.
school complex. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But you're sort of focused on architecture at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So when I visit, I go visit the architecture school, and just to finish the story of how I ended up matriculating, that visit, once I set foot on campus, was just I was just blown away by WashU's campus. Everybody was inviting, from the admissions officers,
Of course.
to the people who gave us the campus tour,
Love
uh,
it.
a couple of students we spoke to, professors we talked to, and I was like, the picture of college in my mind looks like this and feels like this. And
I mean, we've heard this before so many times from other students, but you look up the word university
yeah,
in a dictionary or something, and there's a picture of WashU because
it's a picture of WashU. Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it's not always, I'm not being literal about this, but it
yeah,
really is kind of the classic uh, kind of environment, a laboratory for students to
exactly.
learn. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so anyway, so yeah, so you get here as an architecture major, is it, or that was your pursuit at
That
least?
was my pursuit.
Mm.
And so my first year was a bunch of, you have to take your prereqs, which for architecture was a lot of history classes,
Yeah.
and your design studios. And I had a very rude awakening about where I was in my artistic skills.
Yes.
It's interesting how, you think you know a thing, but you go to a place like WashU where not only is it, academically rigorous, but like the quality of students that they attract. I mean, the
Sure.
aptitude is just off the charts. And so my classmates were students who, you know, had interned already at architecture firms and had done blueprints, and
Wow.
whose family members owned firms, and
Wow.
they were light years ahead of me as far as like what they understood about the discipline, and I was truly at the first step. And
Sure.
so I was like, all right, well, we start where we start, we'll go in and see where we are. And I remember we had an assignment where the professor wanted us to design freehand Brookings Hall in like a 3D perspective. And he was like, just sketch what you see. No
Uh-huh.
rulers, just sketch what you see and come on in. And so I do the assignment and come in the next class. He says, everyone put your drawings up on the wall. And I put my drawings up. And Rob, when I tell you, I have never wanted to hide and disappear more in my life. Like it was like these photographic renderings of Brookings all around the room, that I mean the art detail was so incredible. And then there was
Yep.
this one that looked like a third
No.
grader had gotten drunk and found a box of pencils, and
No.
just, oh, it was such an embarrassing moment. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, there's something I didn't know that I'm learning. And so, and that wasn't the only thing. I also
right.
realized that you needed there was a passion for art and design that I, over the course of that first year, realized. I was like, oh, I don't quite have that. I love the idea of design, but
Sure.
I don't quite love to design.
Yeah.
And that sort of became evident over the course of that freshman year. And
Got it. Got it.
and
That's
by the end
fair.
of it, I was like, all right, I think we're gonna
Yeah.
find something else.
It's fair to say I could never make an architect myself. Being a set designer, you would think I have the same skills, but there's so much about architecture I do not
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, it's a really fascinating discipline because it incorporates so much from history to
Yeah. Yeah.
the study of like literally every period in history and their forms, and then how to
Yeah.
incorporate that into your design. And
Yeah.
uh,
I'm sometimes asked where the set design students come from, at least, or where do I go recruit as if I go off campus or travel nationally looking for students. And I'm like, no, no, no. They're usually architecture students
yeah, yeah,
who I almost like I don't know, like I'm a temptress. I actually say, would you like to design something where the roof can float? Take my class, like we defy physics in
yeah,
my
yeah.
class. So yeah, I kind of feel like whenever I'm invited, I always say yes to a guest lecture in the School of Architecture because it's a great way to find students who just want to sort of spread their wings in a different way,
Yeah.
and put something else in their portfolio. But anyway, I want to get to sort of your journey through WashU. You became involved in a number of different. Well, you auditioned for shows and were in performing arts department shows, but also extracurricularly. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. While I hadn't made the decision to go into the business professionally, I knew that I wanted to stay involved creatively in acting because it was such a
Yeah.
huge part of my high school years. And so immediately I took an acting course my first semester, and I loved that course because it was the first time that I was sort of studying this thing that I intuitively did, but had never really taken the time to like practice and break down and go, oh, what is that? What is this thing
Right.
that I'm doing on stage in these plays in high school and
Got it.
these, speeches that I'm doing? And so enjoyed that. And I auditioned and had missed the first round of auditions because I'm new to everything and didn't quite know how it operated. But I someone said, "Hey, they're looking for an actor for this play called The Endless Adventures of MC Cat." This sort of like absurdist modern play, and they're having a hard time finding someone to cast it. You should email the director. And so I get the information, email the director. She brings me in, Melanie Dreyer, who was
Hmm.
an adjunct professor at the time, and she likes what I do in the audition and cast me. And what I loved about this role is that in this play, we follow this, it's a ridiculous play where we follow this meerkat that's a puppet being manipulated by an actual actress who's giving the voice and moving the puppet. But as the audience member, you're watching the puppet, even though you
Yes,
see the actor behind
of course.
the
Yeah.
puppet. And it's amazing how you just get sucked into watching
Yeah.
this inanimate object become animate.
Yeah.
And so this object has a friend and they're traveling through the country and they come to this town where there are a bunch of citizens. However, in the show, all the citizens in the town are played by one actor.
Oh, wow.
And so that's the role I got.
Oh my gosh.
And the director was like, "We just want you to play. Like just come up with as many characters as you can." And I got to draw on that forensic background that I had done in high school. And I was like, "Well, all right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pull out these characters that are familiar to me
Right.
and put them to use." And she loved it. And that play, as ridiculous as the plot was and the setup was, ended up being one of my favorite things I did at WashU over the course of
Wow.
my time there. It
Wow.
was such a fun way to explore and be creative
Sure.
and play, and so that
Yeah.
was my introduction
Nice.
to the
Kind of
PhD.
as a sort of parallel to an architecture portfolio, this was your acting portfolio in one show,
In one
which
show, exactly.
yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. Nice.
And what that also, going to sort of my tagline about expanding horizons and comfort zone. I until I got to WashU, the purview of my world was pretty much limited to sort of this urban landscape where it was predominantly black, very urban,
Mhm.
and this was the first play that I'd done of this style and this type. So it was literally expanding my horizons as to what was possible with theater and acting. I was thinking very conventionally and
Sure.
about the type of theater that you do, where it's like, oh, we're going to have a plot that's linear and we meet the characters and here's the inciting incident and here's how it's resolved. And in this show, here we are following a main character that is a puppet. That it literally, informed me like, hey, anything's possible.
Yeah.
And then also gave me a platform to go, those things that you go up around, those people, those voices, who are in your neighborhood and walk the halls of your schools. Use those people. Those are valuable resources that you can use in your career. It's not, instead of, it's in addition to. And
Right.
that there was a place for those characters and voices in a work like that. Just validated what was possible in the world of theater.
I love it.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So it was great.
Ah, that's I just got chills. You can't tell this is an audio only podcast, but I can guarantee I have chills because I mean, you hit on the essence of it. Like you've hit on the magic in a sense.
Yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
love it.
Yeah.
So you spent, you were highly involved, not just like I said, in department productions like this one, but also AST, all student theater shows.
Mhm.
Back on, still is performed on Brookings Quad.
Glad to
Um,
hear.
yeah, and so when you kind of matriculated through your time here at WashU, becoming more and more involved in again both extracurricular and curricular opportunities in drama, did you graduate with a drama degree, or how where were you headed in terms of like major minor combinations, those kind of
Yeah,
things?
so after, trying my hand at a different things, after architecture, I flirted with education. I flirted
Uh-huh.
with engineering even. I took a couple engineering courses.
Nice.
I went and took a business class, and I ended up with history. I had always had an affinity for history. I was, the rare kid who, I don't know if you remember back in the day, we used to get those, what, it was almost like Publishers Clearinghouse where you could like order magazines. They would have these
Yeah.
stamps where you could order these magazines. And
Yes.
of all the magazines that you could choose as a 13-year-old boy, I was subscribing to Civil War Times. And I was just like, I was fascinated by
Sure.
history and
Sure.
particularly that time in history.
Yeah.
And
You're talking to a guy who got sucked into Ken Burns' Civil War. I sat down for like 10 minutes and I'm like, I wonder what this is about. Next thing I know, 10 hours later.
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah. It's this subject where it's just
Yeah.
like why and how and
Yeah. Yeah.
that if one thing had gone a different way, we'd be living in a completely different country, and
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
just fascinating the figures that made
Sure.
the decisions they made at that time and
Hmm.
changed the course of our country's history. But anyway,
Yeah.
I was a huge history nut, and because I had already taken some history courses because of architecture,
Mhm.
and I realized like, oh, I'm well on my way to getting the major in history because I believe it was only 21 credits to get the history major,
Okay.
and by my beginning of my junior year, I'd had 10. And
Right.
so I was like, well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and finish
Sure.
this out.
Yeah.
And I kept taking classes in the PAD. And by my senior year, I realized that I think I was like 3 credits away from getting the minor. But at this point, I'd already walked. And so what I asked, I went to Henry and I
Uh-huh.
said, Henry, I'm so close to getting this minor. Can I do an independent study with you to
Hmm.
get these last 3 credits and just have it be official? And he said, absolutely. And
Nice.
he came up with what I needed to do to satisfy the requirement. And I worked on it and submitted the project and got the minor.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is a refrain I keep hearing, and granted, there's only about 3 podcasts I've done so far, or published so far, but we hear that a lot from not just our current students, but past students like yourself, that the idea or this concept here, the idea that you can be a very multidisciplinary learner,
Hmm.
and as you said, like dabble and flirt with education and flirt with engineering and
Yeah.
land and history, this is essentially what the journey is supposed to be. It's a just journey of finding what you like. And it would seem to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, that the history side of your brain, the history major in this case, was also plays into your work on stage, is it not? Is it about kind of studying time periods and people and digging into those characters?
100%, Rob.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what my career would be like without that background because in every show, inevitably, I am rooting and anchoring my characters in truth and a reality. And
Mm,
not every play is based in a real in a reality that we can go, oh, that's 1765, Africa, or this period, where you can go and do research. Sometimes you have to craft and create, depending on the way the play's structured.
Yeah.
But I always look to go, I need to root this character into something authentic and real. I mean, we work together on The Tempest, which is this world that
Yeah.
we can cobble together some reality, but it's Shakespeare left it sort of like this island that's somewhere in a sea somewhere. And, we meet this character who's talking about Caliban, who is an amalgamation of some background and ethnicity. And so it's like, all right, that's a bit random and open-ended. How do I root that in something that will anchor this character for me over the course of the run? And
Yeah.
so, in that particular production, I ended up, going, all right, he has a Caribbean background, and
Hmm.
he somehow found his way to this island. And I did my research on like islands and, the Mediterranean and what that world is like. And so I'm constantly using my history side of my brain that wants
Sure.
to like find the world and the milieu in which my character has grown up,
Yeah.
has influenced him,
Yeah.
and how he operates, in which he operates. It's very vital, and so
Sure.
100% that lends itself to me as an actor.
I love that. And I love to think that something unique. What I keep hearing from students is the fact that they can find a combination that we're all a patchwork quilt, really, of our
Yeah,
histories and our
yeah,
learnings, and that they can explore and put that quilt together while they're here, which is important.
yeah. I
So,
think it's one of the superpowers, the amazing things of WashU. I haven't been to a lot of universities. I hope that a lot of them give that opportunity, but I
sure.
never heard a dean, an administrator, department head say no. Like
Mm,
every
yeah,
time I had an idea, it was let's figure it out.
nice.
Yeah, and I think that's truly one of the great things about WashU.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, we still, I think, yeah, we still try to sort of go by this sort of mantra, not just knowing a student. We say often by name and story. The
Yeah,
former Dean McLeod used to say a lot,
yeah,
but that we, every student is, as much as I can, I want to try to elevate them. And as I say, I can sum up my teaching philosophy in 3 words: make hope visible. Like I can't
yeah.
take you there on that journey, but if you tell me what your interests are, I can say, well, if you take that class and you meet that person and you do that internship or do that show, whatever it is, you might find yourself there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's
But so you wrapped up here at WashU, and then did you go straight to graduate school, or what happened in the interim there?
I didn't. I graduated and I had this history degree and this theater
Yeah.
minor. And I was like, all right, Corey, what are we going to do with this? What do you want to do? And I, during my time at WashU, I took a couple of classes with Ron Himes,
Yes, of course.
who was the head of the St. Louis Black Repertory Company
Still
and
is. Yeah.
still is. And
Yeah.
so I mentioned to him, I was like, Ron, I'm not sure what I want to do. I have these degrees. I'm not sure which direction I want to go. He's like, well, I know you're interested in acting because I've seen your work. Why don't you come and intern for me? We have an intern program.
Hmm.
And I was like, that sounds like a logical next step. I had been to the Black Rep to see some of their shows and loved the quality of their productions and work.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what, this is not a bad next step. And so I auditioned for the intern program, got in, and was immediately thrown into the deep end of this professional theater world where, as an intern, you got to do everything across the board from acting in the children's program where you toured these shows. And my first year, we toured 6 shows that
Whoa.
ranged from like a young children's show to shows that dealt with historical moments in history. Like I know we had a Martin Luther King show,
Sure.
and we
Wow.
had one on George Washington Carver, and so we performed these educational shows and shuttled around to just about every school in the St. Louis County area and even
Hmm.
across the river in Illinois. And then when you were done touring, you work the professional main stage shows in some capacity, and we would rotate as assistant stage managers, where you got to learn that process.
Yeah.
You would work with the costume designer and learn how that worked. You would go and work in the shop and help build the sets,
Hmm.
props. You were truly immersed in the world of theater, and I am so grateful for that experience,
Oh,
because
good.
not only did it just sort of like connect the dots for me of like, oh, this is how all this works together, but it gave me a respect that has served me in my career of what other people are dealing with and going through.
Sure.
It gave me a vantage point of like, you know, that person is the value of the props person trying to get our props to us in time so we can work. I know what you're going through. If it takes an extra day, or you know, the costume person, I understand that you know you're trying to shell out 100 pieces
Right.
in in a week, and
Yes.
you know it just gives you, I don't know, it gives you an expanded view of how this business works, and I just think gives you compassion for those
Yeah.
other disciplines, and respect for them.
Nice.
That
I'm
is
glad you
certain.
had that experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
The Black
yeah.
Rep now does their shows in our building, right?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on the
Yeah. So
website.
it's
Yeah,
about as close as Black Rep could get to our department without being in this office, basically.
yeah.
So,
I mean, but I think that's great that you have a professional theater in
oh,
addition
yeah.
to the Edison calendar
Yeah. Yeah.
working, right there on campus, and you can see like, oh, this is
Sure.
how this functions, because
Yeah.
I think
Students
that
get
work
to
is
see the
invaluable.
work of a professional company with walking 10 paces into the
Indeed.
Edison. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so then you made the leap after some time working professionally to go to graduate school.
I
That's what it was for
gradually made it to
me, not for
graduate school.
you. Yes, yes. I went to graduate school. You went to graduate school. But you went to my hometown of Austin, Texas. I have to
I
say
did. I
it's
did. Yeah.
obligatory, but I have to say hook 'em horns
Hook
whenever I
'em,
say
hook
that.
'em, baby.
So you studied, if I'm not mistaken, you studied acting there and in drama there?
I did. So after working around town a little bit longer, I worked with Shakespeare Festival
Oh
St.
yeah,
Louis, their inaugural season, funny enough. And then
nice.
Shakespeare Theater with Donna Northcutt. I don't even know if that's still in existence, but
That name
those
rings a bell. Yes.
places allowed me to cut my teeth and sort of hone my skills. And I knew that I needed some more training since I hadn't focused on it in undergrad. And so
Sure.
I applied to multiple schools, applied to ERTA, which gives you the most bang for your buck, in that you
Yep.
get to audition for multiple schools that are recruiting. And
Yeah.
Texas was one of the schools that year, and the head of the program, Fran Dorn, was this lovely force of an actress and woman who was brought up in the classical tradition, and I just immediately felt an attraction when I was in the room interviewing with her and the team, and I was like, I can't explain it, but there's something about her and her magnetism that makes me want to go and study from this woman. And
Nice.
so I did some research, and funny enough, there were two students at Texas who went through WashU, Jacqueline Pryor and Alexis Chamau.
Oh,
And so I called Jacqueline, and I want to say I called Alexis too. And I said, "Hey, I got into Texas. Can you tell me a little bit about the program and about Austin?" And they had nothing but glowing things to say about it, and raved about Austin as a city to come and be for three
yeah.
years. And so I made the decision to go, and was so glad I did. Austin is just, I think, is one of the best cities in the country.
Oh,
I
for
mean,
sure.
yeah, it just has this energy and vibe that is uniquely its own. I
And
mean, it's changed so much over the years with the exodus of people who've left California, and
yeah,
the secrets out about how great Austin is. So I know it's grown by leaps and bounds. But man, when I was there, it was still like this small, weird music town, and
totally.
it was just such an incredible place to be for 3 years. I loved it.
Oh, for sure.
And
And
then,
just leaps and bounds better than Norman, Oklahoma. I think we can both
I
agree.
mean, not enough could be said about how much better it is
Exactly.
than
That's
any
just, I
place
mean,
in Oklahoma.
it's like the sky is blue. It's a given. It's a given in
Exactly.
life. Yeah.
Exactly. The water tastes better even.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, and then the program was great. It was this classical based program that just really gave me a foundation that has set me up for the rest of my career.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Nice.
I truly had a great time in my time
Yeah.
at Texas. Yeah.
And since then, I mean, you've worked so much. You've done a lot. For those that are listening, you and I crossed paths at the Utah Shakespeare Festival 2 summers in a row.
Hmm.
I designed Titus Andronicus, which you were in. You played King John in King John.
Hmm.
And you were also, as you said earlier, Caliban. You've had this really rich regional theater career, but then you found other opportunities. You toured twice with two Book of Mormon tours. Can you talk a
Yes,
little bit
yes.
about, did you after UT Austin, did you move west to LA, or what was next for you?
I did. I had grand designs of being a New York-based actor, and literally, as I was moving to the city, I had already gotten an agent, and I was working in Chautauqua in the
Yes.
summer after I graduated, UT Austin, and I was doing my last sort of summer as a graduate student at Chautauqua.
Yeah.
And I got an offer from a company on the Central Coast of California called PCPA, Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts.
Yep.
And I had done a reading with them earlier in my last year of grad school, and they were looking for resident artists to come in. And so the artistic director, Mark Boer, came to New York, met with me, and made me an offer. And I said, Mark, I'll give it some consideration, but I'm pretty sure I'm ready to go to New York. Like the iron's hot. I just
Yes.
had my showcase. I'm excited to, make that move and get my career started.
Sure.
And I looked at it, and it was a good offer. It was like, who's going to turn down health benefits, a guaranteed job, three roles like, that included Othello, and I hadn't played him yet.
Sure.
But I was like, yeah, I think I want to do New York, so I turned it down. About
Mm.
3, 4 weeks go by. I'm doing my thing at Chautauqua, and he calls again, and he says, Corey, I just wanted to circle back to you. Something just says, I think you'd be a really great fit here. Would you consider it again? And I said, "Oh, Mark, I'm honored, but I think I'm going to go to New York."
Uh,
And I turned it down a second time, and then I gave it some thought, talked to some other actors, and I was like, "Man, I got this chance to go and work and do some great roles,
yeah.
but I feel like I got to go to New York." And they all said, "New York's not going anywhere. New York
Mm.
will be there. Like,
Yeah.
go take the offer, do the job, and then go to New York when you're done." And I gave it some thought. I'm like, you're right. So I called him back. I said, "You know what? I'll come." And long story short, Rob, I fell in love with California. I mean, from
Nice.
the
Nice.
weather to the rolling hills to the
Yep.
vineyards, the wine tastings,
Yes.
it's California. And I
Right.
just, 1 year, what was supposed to be 1 year ended up being 17. I've been here
Wow.
17 years.
That's great.
Yeah. But
Nice.
I've been able to have a theater career from the West Coast, which I didn't think I'd be able to because a lot of the casting houses have bi-coastal offices.
Of course. Yeah.
And, the world has gotten smaller, especially since COVID, in that so much is digital and they're taking tapes from actors who aren't based in New York. And that
Yeah.
has allowed me to work in regional theater and do Broadway from here. And it's
Yeah.
been great.
And you were in the Grinch and at the Old Globe.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
again, these are I just want people listening to know that these are like the sort of top-notch regional theaters in the I think in the world, but at
Yeah,
least in this country, the
yeah.
Old Globe, the places you've worked, Utah Shakes, some really, really amazing. I've been lucky enough to design at both places. I also did Chautauqua. I did a summer in Chautauqua.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's
yeah,
such a unique environment
we
there.
had bats on stage. Did you have a bat problem?
I'm pretty sure, like I came across bats. I don't remember them in the theater because
We
that
had them.
theater,
Yeah, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
was indoors, and I
Yeah.
can't remember there being bats. But it's very, I mean, you're pretty much in the wilderness for a summer,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you
Well,
get
this wasn't,
everything.
to be fair, this was an indoor theater, and we had bats like dive bombing the actors. And I have video of this. And
Oh wow.
there was so of course being Chautauqua what it is, it's the best way to describe it I heard that I love is the NPR has come to life.
It's so true.
And
It's that place, that Garrison Healer.
Healer. Yes,
Yeah, what
yes.
is it called?
The Lake Wobegon kind of.
It's
Yeah.
Lake Wobegon,
Yes, it
like in
is.
the real life. It
It
truly
is.
is. Yeah.
It's crazy. So it wasn't a surprise to no one that there was a bat expert at Chautauqua who came in and were like, we need to do something about this. This is a problem. Like during the show, they're literally these bats are coming 6 inches from an actor's face.
Yeah.
And they said, they're just it's a couple of parent bats teaching their pup how to fly. It's fine. And we're like, but it's not fine. It's a problem. And they're like, well, they have excellent echolocation abilities. So they will never hit anything, and including people. And we're like,
Yeah.
so you're saying we just have to live with it, basically. Even though the play is not about bats, we're not doing Dracula.
Right,
So,
right. Bad
and
boy.
they're like, yeah, there's no way we're not going to exterminate the bats. Is that what you all were suggesting? And we're like, kind of, yeah. Or relocating them.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember during a preview performance, I saw a bat hit a curtain, and my assistant next to me, I said, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" They told us the bats wouldn't hit anything, but that bat just hit a curtain, and then he said something in defense of the bat, and I'm like, no, like you're my assistant. First of all, you're supposed to agree with me always.
Right.
But anyway, I'm joking. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so anyway, so I digress totally from our story about LA. But what I want to make sure we touch on is the fact that you've had this remarkable career, but also you've done some film work and specifically voiceover work, which I think
Mhm.
is like really, really kind of fascinating. Not just voiceover for film, but voiceover for video games. Can you talk a
Yes.
little about your experiences in those areas?
Yeah. I knew that I wanted to do more than just stage acting. And one of the benefits of being in LA is that there are several aspects of the industry that are based here. Obviously, everyone knows about film and television, but
Of
the
course.
video game world, this is pretty much headquarters for that world. And early on in my time in LA, I got an agent and expressed to them that I was very much interested in animation and video games. And it's a tough world to get into because the guys who operate, they are icons. I mean, you think about the actors who do the lead character in God of War or Call of Duty, like they hold
Yeah.
on to those jobs and are the faces and voices of those franchises. But I kept auditioning, and in 2017 got very lucky, and Insomniac Games gave me the opportunity to play. Oh God, the name of my character just flew out of my head, but it's one
Was
of the
it
villain,
Tombstone?
Tombstone in Spider-Man. Thank you, God, that's embarrassing.
This is where Rob consults his notes. You
Yeah,
played.
yeah,
This is your life, Corey. You
right, right.
played Tombstone.
Tombstone, and it was just one of the highlights of my career to be able to voice that because you are literally watching these incredible artists and engineers develop the game around what you create at the mic, and then vice versa. Sometimes they would have the animation done, and then I would fill in the voice to what the action was. And it was
Right.
just this whole new world of acting, like how to activate standing in a room with headphones and a mic. And
Yeah.
it's an aspect of my career that I didn't think I'd do, but I'm so glad that it's I've been able to do that. And
Right. All right. I'm going to pause the podcast right here to share a little bit of audio with you of Corey Jones voicing Tombstone from Spider-Man. Enjoy.
You can't. They rigged this whole thing. What did I just tell you? You trying to kill everyone here? Now what? Hold up. Only downside to going straight. The game keeps you in shape. They couldn't have off me if they tried. Sides, they were waiting for their boss to do the deed. Yeah. They come for me again, I'll be ready. Tell your friend thanks for looking out for me. See you around, Spider.
so I've
Nice.
been able to continue to do that with the second game, the second Spider-Man, the Miles Morales game. Infamous Second Son was another title I got a chance to work with, and
Nice. Nice.
get
And you
into some
played,
motion capture.
oh, interesting, motion
Yeah.
capture as well.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. On the new tombstone and some of the scenes that are in between the gameplay, um, the tombstone movement is me in a
That,
room with the bodysuit with the balls on them, and
that's insane.
oh,
I love it.
it's so wild. It's such a wild, incredible world to play in, and
Nice. And
yeah, yeah.
what a freedom you get just to sort of literally become any, not just any voice you wish, because you have this range, but also any physical being that you wish. You could be a
Yeah, and
monster. We would, yeah.
yeah, and literally like I'm in the room with these guys who do like parkour
Yeah.
and watching this guy embody Spider-Man
I love it.
jumping around this room. And it's funny because when you see the game, it's this rich world with buildings and all whatever the scene is.
Yeah.
In the room in which you record this, you're playing on like PVC pipes,
Yeah.
and you know, uh, it's a very skeleton sort of set of things that you're working with. But these guys, what they use, these sort of like trapezoidal pieces that they have in the room that they use are like launching themselves like Spider-Man off of these and rolling and shooting the webs, and
Wow.
they capture that movement and transplant that into the game, and that's what you see. And it's
That's crazy.
like the
Wow.
artistry is just
Yeah.
insane. So
Wow.
hats off to the guys who do that work. And it's another aspect of performance that when I get a chance to talk to students, I say, hey, say no to nothing. Like, take the dance class,
That's
take
good advice.
acrobatics or gymnastics in the PE curriculum. You never know when you're going to use these skills in your career.
Yeah.
As artists, we truly embody anything and everything, and
Sure.
like, there is not enough information you can acquire. So whether it's music, singing, playing an
Right.
instrument, stuff you can do with your body, I that's definitely something that I encourage students to take advantage of.
I love it. I love it.
Because yeah,
Say no to nothing. I love that. I
say
wrote that
no to
down.
nothing. Yes,
Say no to
exactly.
nothing.
Say no
You
to nothing.
honestly don't know when you might need it again, which is, again, sort of speaking to students or prospective students at WashU, like take a class in drama. You never
Yeah,
know how it might serve you later in life.
yeah, exactly.
Well, this has been a delight. I didn't want to overlook the fact that you've also seen, as far as I know, the country at least, but perhaps the world on 2 tours of Book of Mormon. Can you talk a little bit about, what that journey was like? You played the general in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, truly a blessing. Like, that show was again one of the highlights of my career.
Nice.
It was, if you have to do a show 8 times a week, every week, open-ended, you could do a lot worse than listening to that score. I mean, Matt Stone and Trey Parker like are just geniuses and
Mhm.
brilliant lyricists, and I truly had a blast doing that show. And being on tour, because that show was so popular in the mid-teens. I mean, we literally got to go everywhere, including Canada and Mexico.
Wow. Huh.
And it's taken me to just about every state, with the exception, I think at this point I have 6 left to go.
Wow.
Yeah, like Montana, Wyoming, New
I love it.
Hampshire, the Dakotas, and Maine. I think that's it. But we
Nice.
went everywhere. Alaska, Hawaii.
Hmm. Wow.
We were doing shows in Fresno and Dayton,
Sure.
and and to get a chance to hear the audience enjoy that material, and the ridiculousness of that writing,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
different markets, and it's truly why we do this business. Like,
I love
that
it.
sort of feedback loop is just amazing, and
Right.
it was a treat to do that role.
On
Yeah.
and off, 4.5 years of your life, we're doing this. Would you say, did you know going in that it would be that long, or did you always feel in control enough to say when you would know when it was you were done? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I had never done anything longer than, I think, 3 months up to that point. So when I joined the show, I'm thinking, all right, this is work for. They usually sign you to 6-month contracts,
Okay.
because when they sign you on, they want to see how you work with the company, work on the road. And so
Sure.
they start you off with a 6 month, and that's sort of your probation period.
Got it.
And then if they like your work, then they'll sign you on to a 6 month extension. And then once you've been in the family long enough, they'll start signing you to year contracts
Wow.
where you go, all right, you want to do another re-up for another year? And so, by my second year, I was like, yeah, let's keep the ride going.
Nice.
This check's not bad and the per diems are nice.
That's nice. I love it.
Per diem's an amazing thing if you ever get a chance to do a tour.
For sure.
It's a way to like bank your check and stack some chips and
Nice.
yeah. So I loved it, and so then in 2016 I joined Mormon in 2014, 2016. They closed it and sent that show to Australia, and then I had the opportunity to rejoin the second national tour in 2018, and I toured with them all the way up until the pandemic shut us down in
Got
2020.
it.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So
What a rich career, honestly. I've really enjoyed just catching up with you. I feel like we crossed paths and what was, at least for me, kind of 10 years ago, I was still trying to figure things out, and in my career, I was maybe still am trying to figure these things out, but to kind of reconnect after a 10-year absence and find out what you've been working on and all the great things you're doing from voiceover work to tour, national tours. It's just great. So, Corey Jones, thank you so much
pleasure.
for offering your time. I told you, for those that aren't listening, or that aren't listening, those that aren't, most people are not listening. For those that are listening, before we started recording, I said, "Oh, this will just be a half hour, Corey. Don't worry. I don't want to take up too much of your time." And we're going on almost an hour now. So I just want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and it just means so much to me that that you said yes to this crazy idea to be on a podcast.
Rob, thank you so much for doing this, for having me. I'm so glad that you are starting this podcast. And no matter how small the audience might be right now, it's a lesson in you never know, like it's such a small world in this business. You cross paths with people and you
Yeah.
never know how that will impact your life or when you're crossing in what capacity. But also like it reminds me of this rich world that I'm a part of and how it started at this place that is, going on several decades. We won't put an actual number on it, so I don't age myself. But this place that was the beginning of my career, and like hearing the other podcasts and what some of my classmates and fellow artists are doing that had their beginnings at this place. I'm just grateful that you're cultivating these stories and putting them in this form. And so thank you for the work you're doing with this podcast.
Thank you. It means a ton that you said that. I really, really appreciate it. I'm very humbled. But yeah, it's been for me, I've had my colleagues here in the PAD thank me for it, but I'm like, you know what? It's a treat. It's actually a treat to just reconnect with folks like yourself that I worked with before. So thank you, and we're so proud of you. If you ever, I guess you're no longer on the Book of Mormon tour, but if you
Not
end
at the
up,
moment.
if you end up, maybe you will be.
Hey, look, it's still out there, so
It's
never
still
say
out
never.
there.
Yeah.
You don't need to audition for that role anymore.
Exactly. I
assume,
just
so.
wait for the phone call.
Exactly. But if you're ever through St. Louis, please reach out. We'd love to have you talk to students and, kind of, I don't know, we have us elevate and celebrate you.
I'd love that. Thanks for the invitation, Rob, and thanks for the time.
Thank you, Corey. My thanks to Corey Jones for joining the PAD podcast. I am so in debt to him and all the wonderful alumni of PAD for saying yes when they could have easily said no when I reach out to them and ask them to be on the podcast. Corey's just a top-notch prince among men. So I'm very, very thankful to him for joining the podcast. If you would like to be a voice on the podcast, if you'd like to be interviewed on the podcast, if you're what I call PAD or PAD adjacent, please reach out. I'd love to interview you and feature you on the next episode. Until then, please look for the next episode very soon. We've got some great ones coming up. Enjoy your day.